You are tuning in to the You Are Loved podcast, where we hope to bring love and kindness to the world.
Welcome to another You Are Loved podcast, where we have the amazing Angie Monko, who works with entrepreneurial women 50 and over who are feeling financially and emotionally uncertain. They are tired of the hustle and want to get off of the hamster wheel. They want to have time and money, freedom to live their life as they see fit. They want quality time with their kids, grandkids, and aging parents, to travel as they like, to be able to afford luxurious self-care such as retreats, fancy healing gadgets, massages, organic food, etc. They have a strong desire to come back home to themselves and honor their needs and desires, which they haven't done consistently their whole life. This is their time. So, and how does Angie do this? She helps women create an online business that teaches them how to work a 2-hour workday and get their life back. They learn how to earn $900 a day or more working from their comfortable home without having to worry about bosses and rigid work schedules. They're finally free to exhale, relax, and be themselves without fear of being disliked and abandoned. They're supporting themselves through the self-love, nurturance, self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, and finally, self-trust. Welcome, Angie. Thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for having me.
So how do you do all that, Angie? So before you answer that, what brought you to that? Were you that woman in the beginning?
Yes. And I mean, I have a career of 20 years as a CPA in corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up leaving that career to become a life coach. And that was in 2008. And so I've been life coaching the last 16 years. I went to a 12-step program, and someone suggested I be a life coach from that because you mentor people. And
Yeah.
so that's how I made the transition from corporate CPA to life coaching. And does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
And then as a coach, there's a lot of hustle involved in that as well. And,
Okay.
Finding clients and, whether you're networking or you're doing speaking engagements or what have you, however you want to do it, social media. I just felt like I wanted to get off that hamster wheel there as well. I wanted more simplicity and I wanted more ease.
Yeah.
I wanted to stop that addiction to struggle, which I know I've had my whole life.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to do this digital online marketing thing and really combining that left brain analytical side of me with the right brain, the coaching side of me,
Okay.
emergence of two careers, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how's that going so far?
It's going great. I love where I've landed, and it seems like I've landed in a place where a lot of other people, from what I hear in the community,
Mm-hmm.
have worked and searched for years to find this kind of digital marketing opportunity or community.
Right.
So,
Right.
because it's so unusual, no monthly expenses, and we can go more into that later, but it's just, I feel very blessed that I landed there first,
Yeah. How long ago did you do the transition from, or I'm sure you're still probably in it, but anyways, transitioning from being a full-time life coach into, working 2-hour work days?
That was just June.
Okay.
June this year, 2024. And I still do my life coaching, because I love that. But I can use what I'm learning to actually promote my life coaching business should I decide I want to do that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But not only that, but this also allowed you to be able to do the life coaching because you have to pay bills as well, right? You want to be able to help people and pay bills, but because you really don't need to worry about the bills, that's taken care of.
Right.
And then you can have clients that you really want to work with, or you can focus on parts of your business that were your favorite parts of your business.
Right.
Whether it's putting on a retreat once a year or having a couple of clients, working with 1 or 2 clients a month, or, and not having to like do a lot just so you can continue to replace that income.
That's exactly right. And it's a funding source for me. And of course I need to agree with the message and the integrity of the group and the product. And I do. So it's the best of both worlds, because, I want to create a sanctuary called the Resting Tree Sanctuary out at my mom's property. She has 50 acres in Illinois. And
wow, nice.
Yeah. And I love it there. I grew up there. And so I want to go back there and create like little tree houses where people could stay. And I'm thinking 3 retreats a year, but retreats and doing 3-day overnight retreats was the favorite part for me. Well, I love private coaching too, but of my business, of my life coaching business. So I want to be able to do that. And without, again, like you said, just have no financial pressure and create that ease with finances.
Yeah.
And with time, because really, I mean, the whole reason we want money, I believe, is for the time freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. So what, definitely time freedom and the flexibility to be able to just get up and go, wake up or sleep in, or get up and go to the gym and have lunch with your friends, or just, focus on your house if you want to remodel something and not have to feel like you have to juggle it all in. I remember my dad first retired. He was like, I don't know how I had time to work.
Right.
So that's exciting. So to tell us a little bit more, like about that, and like your self-coaching, when not self-coaching, but the life coaching that you've done. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah.
So, cause you have something on your LinkedIn page, and it's like a free masterclass, 3 steps to expand your potential for women leaders. So that looks pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I really love the life coaching part of my life. And I, like I said, I got into it because I was a sponsor in Overeaters Anonymous. That was the group that I was in for 10 years. So I got a lot of experience of sponsoring people. And I think that I just love the feeling of someone feeling empowered, that they don't have to be a victim to things outside of themselves, like how other people treat them, because we don't control that. We don't control how other people treat us.
Yeah.
And so when we can really feel like, you know what, I love and accept myself and I honor where I'm at, then to me, we're free in a lot of ways. We're at peace. And I don't have that every moment of every day, of course. I'm human. But it's taken me a long time, I think, to get to the point where I have forgiven myself for past decisions and choices that I've made. And just, it's like peeling the layer of the onion, like we do a little bit of forgiveness here and there. And so I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think that's great that you talk about like forgiving yourself for past decisions, because I know for years I had like held on to past decisions that I've made that were like lifelong choices that I have regretted.
Yeah.
And then it's just like you just don't have that capability of going back and changing it. That's the thing. So you have to come to a place of forgiveness and release,
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'll share with you if you want to know.
Yeah, please.
Probably my biggest shameful choices. When I got married, and he was my teacher. Actually, he was my high school English teacher. I married him, so we dated for 7 years, and then we got married. Now,
I'm assuming this is after you graduated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, for sure. I was almost 23 when we got married, and then a couple years later we had our daughter Maddie.
Uh-huh.
And she was born with cystic fibrosis, which we didn't know. We were carriers of that, but it affects the lungs and the digestion, and
Uh-huh.
it's a very serious thing. And we were devastated, of course, but we continued to, do our best with taking care of Maddie, and then the thing is, the relationship wasn't healthy. My relationship with him was not healthy, and he was 12 years my senior,
Uh-huh.
and honestly, I always felt somewhat manipulated a little bit in the relationship, and there was a part of me that thought we shouldn't have gotten married.
Yeah.
Um, and we're actually fine now. We're actually, we coexist. We're friends in some way, right? So I
Yeah.
don't ever want to cut someone down, but like sometimes when you have somebody that's a giver and you have someone that's a taker, and that's terrible, but like
No, I mean that's the case. Yeah, for sure.
right.
Yeah.
I'm an empath, highly sensitive person. It's called an HSP. And so I pick up on people's energy. And so that's why I do so much energy management to manage that. And with him, he was more not that. He wasn't that highly sensitive person. He was more of a, well, and I hate this label, but I'm going to say it. It's the narcissist empath connection.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
They tend to go like a hand in a glove, because the person has, we all have narcissistic tendencies, but someone that is not aware of it, they just tend to be more of a taker. And then the empath is more of a giver, but it's not all glowing on the empath part, right? I mean, the fact is we're part of that dynamic.
Yeah.
And so because we want to people please, and we don't speak our truth, we allow that kind of dynamic to occur. And so that's what was going on with me. And so I had been falling out of love with him, and
while you were in high school, because you said you married him when you were 23 and you dated for 7 years, so that means you would have been like 17.
I was 15 when I met him.
Oh, so he was 27.
Yes, he was almost 28.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, so it was definitely an inappropriate relationship on his part. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was. And I ended up graduating when I was 16 years old to get away from him being my teacher.
Okay. Yeah.
So I did. I graduated when I was 16 and my junior year of high school, and went on to college and right away. And so I'm sharing this because of how it impacted my choices. And I grew up in a home with domestic violence, so there was that.
Yeah.
I grew up with a lot of grief. So I had a lot of those childhood adverse events, they call them,
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't realize that, but I ended up marrying my dad in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, 100%.
You did. And
100%, yeah.
And so what happened was,
I date my dad all the time. Not him physically, right? but yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up wanting out of the marriage.
Yeah.
Okay? And it
good for you.
Yeah, and here's my shameful choice. I wanted out of the marriage, and I asked him for joint custody, and he said, over my dead body, right? He was used to being in control.
Yeah.
And he had that, he did have control in a lot of ways over me and how I felt about myself. And so I didn't have the courage to fight to have joint custody of my daughter. And so I ended up relinquishing custody to him. Now, he, of course, made lots of promises that I could see her whenever I wanted and all of this. But it was a trauma response for me. I felt like I was the one that wanted out of the marriage. I felt so much guilt for that. And instead of really focusing on my daughter, I thought, well, he loves her. I love her. He wants to work with me. We'll be fine, And, but 30 days after the ink dried on that document, he wasn't wanting to work with me,
Yeah.
So.
And you would have had to go back to court
And I actually did. I did go
Uh-huh.
back to court because I realized, oh my gosh, his intentions aren't good. But I don't know if you're familiar with lawyers, but like I didn't have a good one. And the lawyer, because I was ready to go inside of a courtroom, right, and tell my story. And the lawyers negotiated. They worked together and convinced me. This is why I say my lawyer wasn't any good. To I got a lot more visitation than I had before in the prior agreement, and I got summer visitations. Like it was so one-sided, lopsided before that.
Yeah.
So anyway, they negotiated, kept us out of the courtroom, and so I got a lot better of a deal than I had before. But it's still, he was in control. You see?
Yeah.
And I felt yet again like, why did I allow this lawyer to do that? Like, why did it, like? And so I spent the next 11 years basically after he had custody of, I paid child support, all that, and just the next 11 years very close to my daughter, because like if you are told you can't see someone and you're limited, it just makes you want to see them that much more, right?
Yeah.
And I remarried a few years later, and I have a stepdaughter. So she and Maddie were very close. They were a year apart, and but still, I just felt so guilty about that decision. And like, what was wrong with me that I could have allowed that to happen? Because I absolutely adored her and loved her. And but when she was 13, she did get to move back in with me. I hired a guardian ad litem, and I advocated for myself, for Maddie, and so she was able to move back in. We didn't go to court. We never did go back to court, but he did.
I bet you he still collected child support though.
No, not after she moved back in. Not
oh,
with me.
Really?
No.
Okay.
No. So that was really good, and but the sad part about that was that she felt so guilty, my daughter, for leaving his family, because there was a lot of guilt tripping going on, if you know what I mean. And he had since remarried. He remarried a year after we divorced, had 2 boys. And so there was a lot of guilt going on about like, well, why, how could you leave our family? Okay.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And 1 second for me, Angie. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. We are back for our recording. So yeah. So is your daughter still around now, or?
What I was leading up to with that was, how I was saying she felt guilty because she moved in with me when she was 13 years old.
Oh yeah.
And so that guilt and that stress of her dad and her family, it started to affect her, and she got CF-induced, cystic fibrosis-induced diabetes. And when she was 15, she ended up going into the hospital for the first time. So she'd been doing very well. She'd avoided the hospital for 15 years, but she went in, and their protocol is to give an IV antibiotic, so for like a week. And so then what happened was she got sick in the next year, so she went in the hospital again when she was 16 years old. And I don't know if you're familiar with IV antibiotics, but I mean, they hurt the gut, and that's the home of the immune system. So it just, her frequency of hospital visits increased, and, she ended up, she ended up passing away in 2018.
Oh, wow.
And she was 22 years old. And obviously that, it was a huge thing, obviously, I mean, she was everything to me. And and I think after she passed, that I just felt that, well, I can't make things up to her anymore,
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that going on, and that's why the guilt is even more complex, because of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, she did live a really full life for 22 years. I mean, we got to travel the world together. We went to Hawaii and Colorado and Mexico. We went to Australia. Like we went to Paris. Like, I mean, we traveled. That was part of our life, you know, and so not only that, but she did get to come and move in with me when she was 13. And so I got to see her regularly. And then her dad actually moved out of state, like within a year of her moving in with me.
Oh, so then you got her full time.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah. And, you know, it's one of those things where I had to appreciate the 22 and a half years that I got with her. And I didn't want that to make me bitter. But just to use my pain as a way to progress. And one of the reasons why I love the 2-hour workday and why I'm so passionate about that and helping women have that time freedom is because what I'm sharing with you about Madeline. We called her Maddie for short. Because I remember, I'll never forget this. It was about probably a year before she died. And she'd been doing pretty darn well, really, right? It was that last year that became difficult. And she said to me, she was wanting to set something up for us to do something. And I, you know, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, like I had appointments and so forth. And I just said, well, honey, I can't make it that time. And she said this to me. She's like, well, mommy, she still called me mommy. She's like, I'm not going to be around forever, you know? And that was like a dagger to me, to my heart. And because sometimes as entrepreneurs and mothers, it's really difficult to walk that line and really be present with the people we love, you know? And so that may had an imprint on me, and I don't want that. Like, as a woman, I'm 55 and I've got aging parents, and my stepdaughter actually moved to Boston in 2020, so a couple of years after Maddie died. And, you know, time with the people we love just becomes that much more precious, and we shift our priorities. And so that's why, you know, I'm very passionate about helping women have that time freedom, because I think we're under such assault with our nervous system of being on the go all the time that it's I think we don't even know what it's like. That's why I said earlier, we're addicted to the struggle. You know? And so this business, this digital business, it allows you, it's simplified, you know, it simplifies your life, and you can use it to make the money, and then you got the time freedom. And I wanted, like, there's wins out in our community all the time. And this one woman, her name is Brittany Sharp, she shared how she was a total newbie to the digital world, and so within a matter of months she made $36,000, and 24,000 of that came from the Legacy Builder program, which is what I'm part of. I don't know how she made the other 12 doing other like affiliate programs and stuff. But she said that she started as a newbie, and now she gets to travel the world with her husband, working from her phone. So, and she got to fire her boss. That's what she said.
Which is great.
And so she's got total, I mean, like, what price can you put on that? You know? And the thing is, for me, I needed to surrender my need to live in that struggle, to live in that pain, you know, because I think that I've had that my whole life. It's like you swim in it and you don't even realize that you're going through that you become addicted to the struggle and to the pain and the suffering. And so I took a lot of healing work, but now I realize I deserve ease and flow. You know, I deserve time with my loved ones. So.
100%. For the people that we want to be around and we want to be able to have that time freedom with, and the ability to be able to spend that, you know, quality time with individuals. So I think that's absolutely amazing. And I think that lighting your way with dailypay.com, is that the website?
It is. And we do, Michelle O'Neill is the founder of the group, and she does a free webinar every week. And so every week, there's a free webinar, and people can just hop on there and learn more about it. And it's just got so many positives compared to other models like this, like the automation. It's a course. I mean, basically, what Legacy Builder is, it's a course. And you hear my dog, that's my dog Mars barking in the background.
My dog's asleep.
Wanting to get outside, but so it's automated. So it's a course where they teach you exactly what to do to set it up. And then you get weekly mentoring on your mindset, because that's a huge, huge part of it, and marketing and tech. So you get live mentoring every week. And that's unheard of. And they won't charge you. See, that's the thing. This is what I've learned, is that most other of these digital communities they'll kind of hook you in, and then they'll start charging you maybe $50 a month. That will not happen with Digital Growth Community. So, because Michelle, the founder, she was dedicated to building a 6-figure business with no monthly fees. So see, that's a distinguishing thing.
So you just pay like a one-time startup fee, and then that's it?
That's correct. And it's very economical. So they have 4 different products that build in knowledge, and this is if you want to do their products, right? They have 4. You don't have to do their products. You could do your own business through this. But if I'm doing it because I want to have a proven model, a proven blueprint, and then I can come back and, if I want to, do my own business through there. But so it's $100, $300, $600, or $900. That's the most. So the Legacy Builder is $900, and then you can finance it over a year. So it's like $77 a month with virtually no interest. So my CPA looked at my CPA mind like, oh my gosh, it's a no-brainer. There's virtually no risk. I've paid so much more, and I hear this all the time. I've paid so much in coaching over the years, and it's not nearly as robust as this. And it's ongoing live training. It's just incredible,
So you've hired coaches yourself, then you were a coach, and then you also you are a coach, right. And then you also were in OA, I guess, OAA, right? OEA, OEA, and so part of that story was, but you shared to me on the phone, was that person was talking to you and because you were a mentor for someone else, right?
Yeah.
And then they transitioned. So explain that story about how you ended up becoming a life coach from that.
Yeah. Well, I started going to Overeaters Anonymous in 2002. And so I've been doing that about 4 years. And after a meeting, someone approached me and said, hey, Angie, have you ever thought about being a life coach? And I said, what? What is that? I've never heard of it. Seems intriguing, but I didn't do anything with it. A year later, someone else said the same thing to me. And this time they referred me to a woman in Canada who was a business coach. And then that woman referred me to a life coach who lives a block from me, a block from where I'm currently located in St. Louis, Missouri. And so we got together, and it was fate. She taught me emotional freedom technique. And have you heard of that? The tapping technique?
No. What is that?
It's like acupuncture, but without needles. And it helps to move the energy through your body. It helps you to rewire how you're thinking. It changes neural pathways. And so she taught me that. And that was 2007. And so she said she used it to help her clients to calm down for a session. And that, so it wasn't her primary modality or anything in helping people. She just used it to help them get focused for a session, at the very beginning. And so what I decided after I learned EFT was that it's emotional freedom technique, or tapping, was that this is powerful. And so I decided to become an EFT practitioner rather than going the traditional coaching route. And so that's what I did. And I launched my business a year later, using EFT as the foundation to empower women, because you can change your beliefs. I also became a certified hypnotist 2 years after that, and a healing code practitioner 4 years after that. So I've accumulated these, 3 main ones, healing modalities. And I'm big into energy medicine, all things energy, and yeah.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to get to the point where I can get rid of like the must-have stressors in my life.
Yeah.
So, like the people in my life that are the stressors around me that, I think that would be like amazing. I think about my mom and my family that takes care of her. And I think that if I was able to afford, like, like people have nannies and stuff.
Yeah.
And if I could afford like to have somebody with me, like a full-time caretaker with me, with my mom that was like a live-in, and that could travel. So that way she could go with me, and I'd have a full-time caretaker go with me while I'm going to my dad's and different things like that. So this way I still had the flexibility to be able to go out and do things I needed to do.
Right.
And not have to be so restricted, and to be able to have that, and then at least I could have my mom with me, but still have that freedom. That would be like the best of both worlds, and remodel my mom's house and totally rent it out. Cause in South Florida, cause, I've considered selling it and just different things, but I think Fort Lauderdale's going to grow even more with a lot of the things that are changing on the new money that's going into there. So probably just keep the property and rent it out and make some money on it.
So. Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate, but so many of us, when we look at our bank account or our calendar, we get overwhelmed. From looking at it. And then, it is very painful to not have enough time or not have enough money. Both of them are such stressors, and it puts us in the amygdala response. That fight or flight freeze, and where we're living in fear and anxiety and agitation most of the time. And so the tapping technique can help you get out of that.
So you like this, where it's just like tapping on your head?
Yeah, there's different meridian points. At the beginning of they're called energy meridians. And what they are, think of like a super highway that runs up and down your body. Okay, these energy meridians, and it's like a long river. Okay. And if you have a river, it starts, maybe this is the starting point. Say one of them is the starting point at the beginning of the eyebrow, and then it goes all the way down the length of your body. And if you had a real river, and say a big tree fell across that river due to a storm or something, the tree fell over, it would obstruct the flow of that river, right?
100%. Yeah.
So what happens is, when we have some sort of trauma, it could be a little t trauma or a big T trauma, and what happens is our energy gets disrupted.
Yeah.
Whenever we feel negative emotion at all, it's a disruption in our energy. So what you do is, when you tap using acupressure versus acupuncture, like with a needle, you start to remove that obstruction in the energy. So like the river, it's like removing the log jam across the river. And so then you feel yourself again. You're no longer dictated by your negative emotions of fear and anger and upset, guilt, shame, and so forth. And each meridian actually represents an organ. Okay. So like the beginning point here at the beginning of the eyebrow is your bladder meridian. It's your bladder. And the side of the eye is your gallbladder.
Yeah.
And under your eyes, your stomach meridian. Like, so they're all attached to different organs.
Yeah.
And so like, if you're afraid, you could just tap right under that eyebrow, because a lot of times when we feel fear, I'm sorry, right under the eye, when we feel fear, we feel it in our stomach, don't we? A lot of times.
My chest more than my stomach. Yeah.
Okay. So the lungs, you feel it in your lung. Well, there's another meridian for the lungs. It's actually right above the thumb, like right here where the wrist is.
Yeah.
And so you can tap right there. That's the lung meridian.
Interesting.
And that is the home of grief, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would make sense because my best friend deals with a lot of anger and grief, and he has lung issues.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the heart is on the opposite side at the pinky.
This side over here, yeah.
On the bottom of the wrist. And, those are not necessarily part of the normal tapping. There's like a sequence of tapping points, There's like 8 main ones. But yeah.
What's it called again? It's called what? Emotional
freedom techniques.
Okay.
So if you were to Google it,
people could go to YouTube University and look it up.
Oh yeah. And Nick Ortner is a guy who created a website for tapping. And so that's where I'm part of the tapping solution, they call it. But yeah.
Okay. So what do you probably, Angie, is like the one major book that helped you with like your transitions or, you've been through several transitions in your life, and what's that one book that stood out to you the most that you kind of in your mind go back to that made a difference for you?
There's really kind of 2 of them, but the first one I would say is Loving What Is by Byron Katie. Have you heard of it? Yeah, she's an amazing woman who she was suicidal and like she had so many things going on, and then one day, I guess she reached such a depth of lowness, like just a bottoming out period, and then she channeled the next day. She channeled something called the work, and it's where you ask yourself different questions. And like, is that true? Like if you're experiencing some sort of judgment, they call it the judge your neighbor worksheet, that you ask yourself, well, is that judgment true? Can you really know it's true? That's question 2. Do you really know it's true?
Yeah.
And number 3 is like, well, how do you feel when you think that thought? And then number 4 is, do you want to continue to think that thought? Or something like that. It's been a while since I've done it, but she just has this way of, when you do the work, it really gets you to reflect inside of you. Like, and your goal here is to love what is. Like, we can fight with reality all day long, but it's always going to win. Like, reality is always going to win. And so like, I remember not long before my daughter died, I remember reading from Byron Katie, and she was talking about the death of a child, actually. And in there, she said, she was even talking about how you can apply the work to the death of a child. And this is harsh. I mean, like, reality is harsh. It can be harsh at times. And so she was saying, well, anything that happens in life is supposed to happen. Okay? That's what loving what is all about. And so she was saying, even if you lose a child, you're supposed to lose that child. Okay? And that's what I mean by it's harsh, right?
Yeah.
And then she would say, how do I know that's true? So in my case, how do I know I should have lost my daughter, Maddie? How do I know that? Because it happened. Because that's what is. You see what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
It's a real spiritually mature practice. It is. Like, there's nothing, and that's not going to be the right practice for someone who just loses someone.
Right.
Like, you're not going to say, well, hey, it happened, so it should have happened.
Right.
You got to use discretion with it. But so loving what is, it did help me to take myself out of that victim mindset and put myself into just a more empowered way of looking at life.
I love that.
Not easy.
I was looking up her book. It's on Amazon. Loving What Is, 4 Questions That Can Change Your Life.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So that's awesome. I'm going to
Yeah.
save that.
It is a life change. It was life changing. Just that paradigm shift of, and then the second book, which is Busting Loose from the Money Game. Busting Loose from the Money Game by Robert Scheinfeld. And that book really floored me. We don't have time to probably go into that book, but it's much more than about the money game. It's really the life game. Actually, I ended up, me and my daughter Maddie and Chelsea, my stepdaughter Chelsea, we all went to a 5-day event at Robert's home in Charlottesville, Virginia. And that was in 2015, and totally changed our life.
How did you end up getting to go to his house?
because after I read his book, Busting Loose from the Money Game, I guess I got on his email list somehow. Okay. So he sent out an invitation for a retreat, a 5-day, it's called the ultimate key to freedom experience. And I, ever since I read his book, I always wanted to meet him because I was totally fascinated. It's a very deep book, and it'll shake up the ego to the extreme. I mean, like, and so the book doesn't even portray how Robert really feels about life. Like when we went to see him in 2015, and we're actually still friends with him, you know, because it was so unusual, a mother and her 2 daughters coming to this.
Yeah.
I mean, Maddie's obviously not still friends with him, but me and Chelsea are. And I just talked with him not long ago. And he's an incredible human. It was just, it discombobulated us for quite some time after that. And it gets into metaphysics and like everything, you know, like about the nature of reality and like, what is this life experience really about? You know, who's in charge? Like it gets into all those.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love stuff like that. I downloaded it on Audible. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just did. Busting Loose from the Money Game by Robert Scheinfeld, narrated by Bruce Laurie.
Okay. But again, even that book it's pretty out. It's an older book. So it isn't totally, it's just not going to convey where he's at right now. It's even more of I think, an ego buster.
That's okay. I love stuff like that. So, and so The Alchemist is a good book, and The 4 Agreements is a really good book.
Oh, I've read The 4 Agreements.
Yeah, that's great. I have that on Audible, and I re-listen to it once or twice a year.
Nice. Yeah. The Alchemist, though, who's that by?
Just started listening to it because I just heard of it again, and Paulo Coelho. So let's see here.
That's a big thing for me, alchemy, because like we can, like I said, with the pain of losing Maddie, like to alchemize that into something that's gonna serve, you know?
Yeah, it's a fable about following your dreams, really. This story, dazzling in its simplicity and wisdom, is about an Andalusian shepherd boy named Santiago who travels from his homeland in Spain to the Egyptian desert in search of treasure buried in the pyramids. Along the way, he meets a gypsy woman, a man who calls himself king, and an alchemist, all of whom point Santiago in the direction of his quest. No one knows what the treasure is or if Santiago will be able to surmount the obstacles along the way. But what starts out as a journey to find worldly goods turns into a meditation on the treasures found within.
Nice.
Yeah. It's like the transforming powers of our dreams and the importance of listening to our hearts.
Nice. I love that.
So I think someone had just suggested another pod. Again, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of that book and I knew that I was supposed to read it, you know, and then so it was a good reminder. So okay. Well, listen, Angie, if anybody wants to find anything on you, I'm going to have your links in the bio. So we do have the Light Your Way with dailypay.com. Do you also want me to put your LinkedIn in there as well, or?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. So that way if they want maybe to come to you before they can get to the process of lighting their way with Daily Pay, if they need coaching or whatever, they can find you on that as well. Is there anything last thing that you'd like to share?
I think the key for me of doing this for so many years and coaching and is that, just to have grace for ourselves and forgive ourselves, because life is not easy. We're being tested all the time, and
Yeah.
and so I think the biggest shift for me since coming even to digital growth community has been to really, I think, come into a place of love for myself and honoring of myself, and not just, it's easy to say that, right?
Yeah.
But it's another thing to actually feel it and live it. And so I'm just constantly checking in with my feelings. We didn't really go into feelings much, but feeling the feelings, that's huge. And like, I'll cry probably every day on some, and not just because of Maddie, but on something else, because it's a release. It's a release. And that's okay. Like, we don't have to put up the facade, and because nobody's got it all together.
No. I think that's key right there. Like, no one has it all together. Like, everybody's got something, that we're working through. So, well, Angie, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Appreciate you coming on to the podcast. And I will probably be out in about 2 to 3 weeks. And I'll let you know as soon as it's getting ready to go live on LinkedIn and stuff. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Jackson.
Thank you, Angie. All right, honey.
Have
a good day. All right.
You too.
Bye. Everyone, thank you so much for joining for another You Are Loved podcast that you get right here on YouTube, Facebook. Soon it'll be on Spotify. And so you can download that. And then also you have the ability to be able to get access to our journals and planners at youareloved.store. Have an amazing day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of You Are Loved. If you have any topic ideas or would like to be a guest on the show, please hit us up on Instagram at youareloved.store.